Did they make
No,
contact?
no. It's pretty close, but this is going to be a drag race.
Look at this.
Moves him to win it. Carl Edwards bump and dump and run.
Here comes Gordon right up to the bumper again.
You hear that wheel spin, Ben?
Yeah, I did hear that wheel spin.
The bump and run.
There it is.
Gordon underneath to the lead. 2 laps to go. But the bump and run is going to get Jeff Gordon the checkered flag at the end of the winless streak. Gordon wins the Sharpie 500 at Bristol.
And Maine really turned around, made a Reilly's cage up.
Hey there, welcome to the Bump and Run podcast. I'm Michael D. White, joined by my two best friends, Matt the Statman Reilly and Eric Daytona Ron. And today we are breaking down the Dixie Vodka 400. Hope you guys had a great weekend. Hope you had a William Byron type weekend because he was the big winner down there in Miami. How you doing, fellas?
Doing good.
I'll take an HMS win any day of the week.
I know you're happy about that one. I'm a little disappointed in my boy Tyler Reddick. I think another 10, 15, 20 laps, and that would have been an RCR win, but I'll take second place. I know he's upset about it. But before we get into the Dixie Vodka 400 at Homestead Speedway, let's take it to Saturday. Let's talk a little Xfinity Series racing. RCR did get the win on Saturday. Myatt Snyder locking up his first win. Tyler Reddick coming in second, and then his car being DQ'd. What'd you guys think about the Xfinity race this weekend?
It was fun. Tires were king, as we saw. I mean, Homestead is such an abrasive track, and for those of you who don't know what that means, it just means that the tire wear on that track, the tire wear drops off quickly because of how abrasive the track is, and it means there's a lot of comers and goers, and we saw that in the Xfinity race for sure.
Yeah, I'd agree. The tire wear, that always makes for a good race no matter what. And Homestead being, one of the best mile and a halves out there, I think the tire wear is one of the reasons it is one of the most exciting tracks on the circuit.
Absolutely. Homestead Miami, of course, considered the best mile and a half we have in NASCAR. And that tire wear created a little bit of a drama show near the end there with Noah Gragson running into the back of David Starr. I want to know what you guys think about this specifically because it came out David Starr had some cording in his tires. Looks like they were going flat. He shot up into the wall. Noah Gragson couldn't stop. Slammed right into the back of him. And then Noah Gragson called him, I believe it was a dipshit. And, well, the owner of the car wasn't too happy about that. I don't know if you saw the tweet on today. That
while you're looking for that, Whitey, that was one of, I thought, 2 really weird things that happened in that race.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you guys can shed some light on it, but Harrison Burton blew his engine under caution. And you don't, like, now where the engines are so good and so well built, you don't see that a lot, especially under caution. And I just thought that was super odd.
Do you think there was something, the blocking maybe some of the airflow to the engine? Do you think it overheated, or did they really say?
I mean, no, I didn't look too much into it.
It is kind of shocking.
My notes just.
It is always shocking when an engine blows these days,
especially under caution. Under caution, it's not like he's going, full out, on the racetrack and then he blows it. So.
JGR, it's not a backmarker team where.
No, but being with JGR, a fan, they've had issues like that in the past, and it scared me to death because you have Kyle Busch that goes out with a blown engine and they don't know why. Like you're saying, It's kind of just like a fluky thing. Well, every other person that drives a Toyota, guess what? Oh, they're checking everything. What happened? And when it's a fluke like that, it's tough to diagnose.
I think didn't Denny Hamlin have an issue like that last year or the year before where he blew an engine in practice? And it was a little scary for everyone driving a Toyota that weekend. So Carl Long Motorsports, the car owner of David Starr, posted on Facebook. It was a picture of a corded tire. It looked pretty bad. And he said, this right front tire that came apart on David Starr while running 12th position on the lead lap with a few laps remaining. The tread came apart and he dropped down to give Gragson the top line. The car then slid up into the wall. Gragson made a statement that we were dipshits and that we did not belong on the track. And well, he went on to call him an over-entitled mouthpiece, not having enough talent to miss our wreck. Kind of some rough words on each end, in my personal opinion. But I kind of agree. I feel like Noah Gragson, he just blew that one out of proportion. He's calling people dipshits. Like I don't know. I think he could have avoided it maybe.
Here's the deal. And as much as I want to back Noah Gragson because he is a junior motorsports driver, I can't, because it was a fluky thing. And I don't know, when he called him a dipshit, I don't know if you guys were watching the race, but when he called him a dipshit, they got that interview in probably like a solid at least 10 minutes after the wreck happened. So he had a little bit time to digest it, probably see a replay, and he still came out with those comments. I don't know. He has so much potential as far as talent goes, but he finds himself saying these crazy, stupid, ridiculous things sometimes, and it's just the immaturity level that I hope to see him get better at. But the tire blew on David Starr, and it was just one of those freak things where it happened, and it was just wrong place, wrong time for Noah Gragson, and he was just carrying so much momentum. There was nothing for him to do. So I don't know. There's no right or wrong for either guy in this situation, in my mind.
I think you make a good point too, where he had a little bit of time to cool down and choose his words a little bit better, because, well, he came off with that great scenario with all of his sponsors where he's going to go to Bass Pro Shops and buy some Black Rifle coffee and watch the fish in the tank, which I do enjoy myself. I do find that pretty relaxing. I think that's a really cool part about Bass Pro Shops and Cabela's and stuff like that. But I don't know, the more Gragson gets the spotlight, the more I dislike him, if that makes any sense. You know, he wrecked his teammate last season. He's very arrogant, kind of cocky, and I don't think he has a whole lot of the skills to back up the cockiness. You know, there's a difference between being like, you know, Kyle Busch cocky and having the skill to back it up. Noah Gragson, he's okay, but he's no Kyle Busch.
It's those Vegas boys, man. It's those Vegas boys. They're cocky.
You want to know why? And I have a theory on this. This goes along with people on the West Coast too. We're East Coast guys. We deal with a lot of snow, rain, just shitty weather. It builds different people. Now you're growing up in the desert of Las Vegas. You have no adversity that you can't control when it comes to like weather and stuff like that. I feel like that gives people a little bit of a different mentality. I don't know. That's just me though.
No, I agree with both you guys. The Gragson thing, like I had written down here that he's too young of a driver to really complain yet. Like if he's gonna like let it go, I had let it go. This kind of stuff is it could happen to him week in and week out. And if this is how he's gonna handle this type of adversity, he's in for a long, long career. I'll tell you that much, because I see. And this is kind of where I always explain to the people like, oh, why do you hate Logano so much? It's because of this. Like some of these young drivers that maybe will look at Logano and see the way he handles things. He handles it the completely wrong way, where he doesn't own up to it. He puts the blame on everyone else or just basically says, it was racing. So I think Gragson just needs to let it go. It's going to happen again. Learn to deal with that. Learn to put it behind you and move forward. In this sport, that could happen any week. I mean, look at all like Truex, all the adversity. He should have won 25 more races than he has already won, but stuff happens, mechanical failures, just basically shitty luck where you dominate a race and guess what happens? You don't win. You know, the most talented driver, the best car of the day, more often than not, doesn't win that race. So, you know, that's NASCAR. That's the sport. I think Starr's team, you know, as far as the name calling and that stuff goes back and forth, it's good for headlines, but like they're both, you know, just sticking their own foot in their own mouth. Like it's just both sides shut up, move on, say what happened, and I think they just made a bigger deal than they had to over it. But I agree with you, Eddie Gragson. He needs to just get his shit together about like attitude. You're not Kyle Busch. You know what I mean? So I just think it was blown out of proportion.
I think you make a good point too. We're just trying to grab those headlines because even today, Gregson on Twitter is still fucking fighting it and still like saying
Right.
that they
and, like,
were in the
whole
blame.
Denny thing
Like even
with
up to
Jenna
like,
Fryer, like, you know, like that's just the whole. I just feel like that's people just trying to get in the spotlight or those clicks.
yeah.
Like, and you know, Denny basically called out NBC for like saying here, like they told their analysts and their panel what to say and talk about, and it's just like Denny called them out.
Oh
and,
yeah.
You know, I don't blame him.
If you guys listening at home are not following Denny Hamlin on Twitter, you're doing yourself a disservice. It is fantastic, especially last week. Great follow. All right, let's get into Sunday. Of course, the Dixie Vodka 400 Homestead Speedway had a whole lot of lead changes, but in the end, it was, of course, William Byron getting his second career cup win, his third start with a new crew chief, and I'm just wondering, you know, are we starting to see Willie B, you know, really come into his own? Can it be a breakout year for William Byron? I know we're very early to start making long-term predictions in the season, but I'm seeing some promise. I mean, the last 2 weeks, he didn't have the greatest luck, but you're seeing glimmers and everything, and I'm wondering, do you think the new crew chief can bring out the best?
I hope so. I hope just for I mean, I'm a Chase fan, but I'm also an HMS fan, and what's good for the goose is good for the gander, right? So if these guys are winning races, you know, look at Larson. Larson, there's something to be said that he could have been 3 for 3 in winning races this early in the season. Larson,
oh yeah.
Bowman ran a little bit better, and you know, Chase.
Something's going on with Bowman this season where like every week I want to put him in my fantasy lineup, and I'm a little afraid because he's just not showing much.
He started off so hot
last year. Yeah, I loved Bowman last year, and I thought he ran up front, and especially the beginning of the season. And we're going to the West Coast, and he ran really well in the West Coast. And I'm not sure about this. Did his whole entire team stick and just switch?
Yeah.
Or so he has the same exact pick, everything that he had in the 88 is now in the 40, so nothing really changed for him?
The only thing that changed for Bowman was the number. Right now, Kyle Larson is running all of Jimmy Johnson's old crew. So
okay, because that's surprising. Yeah, because Byron ran well. That is surprising.
That's another thing too, is that Chad Knaus is now overseeing the whole operation as far as the on track stuff.
So competition director.
I think exactly. So I think he's going to he's a 7-time champion crew chief. So I think he's going to shed light and help the entire organization get better. And yesterday might have been a product of that early here in the season.
I tell you what, I know right now Chase Elliott is better in the point standings, but I feel like Kyle Larson is the most consistent driver so far over at HMS. Like he is solidly in the top 10 all day long, especially yesterday. We saw a lot of different people in the top 10 all day long. He was always a player, and I'm eating my words hard. Like it pains me to say, I thought it would take a lot longer to get back into the rhythm of things with the cup car, but he is just on fire. Besides that missed turn at the Daytona road course.
I will say Larson, I agree. He's doing well. He's definitely probably out of the HMS cars. He's got to be the best talent behind the wheel. But the best talent behind the wheel, like I said earlier, doesn't always win. You know, the best car doesn't always win. So, you know, I think his time will come. But then again, we've been saying that for 4 years, and he struggled to get that win. A lot of second place finishes, but he struggled to get those wins. So
that's true. A lot of times we're like, is this year going to be Kyle Larson's year?
Right.
You know?
And we say that every year. Every year is going to be Larson's year, every single year. And he struggles to get that win. So I believe he's a great talent, and he is running the best out of those HMS cars, even though one just won this weekend. But you're right, though. Like, Byron might have that win, but Larson has definitely had the consistency behind him. I just think it's a team sport when it comes to that. And sometimes, like, you know, Matt brought up, like, Chad Knaus. I think he wants to bring more of a team to the whole entire organization rather than throw everything at Jimmy, throw everything at, you know, one or two of these cars and really, you know, even out that field and get all four of those cars working as one. So I could see HMS being a team that that wins a ton more races.
Absolutely. On a side note, if you ever want to get into just see behind the scenes at HMS, it's a little bit it's an older documentary. You could actually get it for free on Crackle. I think it's like Road to Race Day, something like that. And it's just all the behind the scenes of HMS. And Chad Knaus is a son of a bitch. Like he is a motherfucker when it comes to the way he runs the shop. And I can't imagine what it's like with him overseeing all 4 cars. So
and you know what that got him? 7 freaking championships.
That's true.
So
absolutely
whatever.
True. Before
Senior was a son of a bitch, and he's a 7-time champion. I mean, that's just sometimes what it takes.
Before we get into the meat and potatoes of the race, do you guys want to do our race scores, the grade, if you will?
Sure. I gave the race a C.
Okay.
It had its good times, but anytime I find myself, I can go put a load of laundry in, or I'm going to go, kind of, meander around the house and kind of have it on in the background. It's kind of a subpar race in my eyes. When I find myself able to do that, there's races that I'm glued. I'm not leaving my couch or my chair. I'm watching that race.
Yeah.
So I think, obviously with tire wear, you have the comers and you have the goers. And, I was hopeful and I was tuned in to hopefully see if my driver, who in that first stage was in the back, I'm like, okay, maybe he's waiting for the track to change and that's when he's going to come up.
Yeah.
And he did. And, his car was better when the track cooled down, but he got into the wall and, cut a tire down and had a fight back and just, couldn't really get the finish that I think he could have got another top 15, which is what I'm hoping for out of that 43.
Yeah.
But overall, it was just one of those races where it was kind of blah for me.
Okay.
Yeah, Dovin, we're gonna go 2 for 2 here on agreeing with grade races or race grades, unfortunately, because I also gave it a C. I was talking with my dad a lot during the race, and I just kept saying to him, and I think I even said it to you guys, like, this is such a weird race. It was such an odd race yesterday, and I mean, with everything from Buescher leading 57 laps yesterday. With guys like Kyle Busch, Denny Hamlin, until later in the race, MTJ, those guys were non-existent. And I just thought it was just a super odd race. And William Byron, was that not the quietest domination of a race you've ever seen? Like, he was up there for 102 laps. And I don't know how you guys felt about it, but I was as much of an HMS fan I am, I just kept like, I don't know if I believed it. Like, William Byron's not going to win this. You've got Larson waiting there to pounce. Here comes Reddick.
Yeah.
MTJ later in the race was making his move up, and I just didn't think Willie B was going to get it done. And I just thought it was a quiet domination on his part and just a super, super odd race yesterday. So a C. It wasn't awful, but it wasn't exactly what I was looking for as far as Homestead goes.
So, I agree. It was a very odd race, but I kind of enjoyed the parity in the leaders. We saw a lot of mix up with the top 10 all day long, which you kind of want to see that. Like, I want to see guys that aren't usually in the mix in the race. I will agree though, at some points it was, a bit boring, you kind of lose focus a little bit. I was watching William Byron all day long because him and Tyler Reddick started very close to each other. So I was watching Byron move up through the field as Reddick was not. He was struggling very early on in the race. And I'll be honest with you, I know I picked Reddick to win.
Here, though.
Yeah.
Like, it's different for you. Like, for this race for you, if you had it at an A compared to us, now, there's a reason. I'm not gonna give it an A though, because I'm not gonna let the biases play into it. I want to give it a fair grade. So, but like I said, like, I was watching a lot of what William Byron was doing, coming through, and Reddick was struggling, and sorry, I kind of lost my thought there. So as he was struggling and everything, I was waiting for like a change to happen. Like, I don't even know. Right, that's exactly where I was at too. Like, it's like Eric Jones started it. He was in the back. Reddick was in the back.
Yeah.
That first stage, a lot. Logano was in the back, like you said. Hamlin was in the back.
Oh,
and like you said, wasn't anticipation.
You reminded me
of waiting for those guys, you know?
All right, so you reminded me of the point I wanted to make because Denny Hamlin started in the back also.
Yeah.
And I know last week on the podcast, I said Reddick was my pick to win. But in reality, I assumed Denny Hamlin was going to be the player in the game to win. You know, he won last year. He always runs pretty strong at Homestead. I thought he even starting in the back. So I was watching him cut through the field. He cut through the field really quicker than I think all the other Joe Gibbs guys were doing.
He got to like the top teens and like mid-20s, and he just kind of fizzled out. Like it was those tires, once again, the abrasiveness of the track. I mean, he was able to get up to the mid-pack, and then that was it for him.
I think
JGR though too.
I think too is
JGR struggled. They were in the middle of the pack from 18th. Kyle Busch struggled. Like you said, MTJ, he struggled a little bit. And even when he got up there, like just couldn't hang. And to your point, Whitey, like I do agree with you. It's nice seeing the top 10 completely different than it usually is.
Like that was pretty exciting watching Chris Buescher up front, you know? So if I was grading it just on the first half, I would give it a C+. I thought it was entertaining, a little boring. You know, some of those usual players were struggling in the beginning and it wasn't as exciting. It was fun to watch, you know, Buescher and Keselowski go back and forth a little bit. But at the same time, I'm like, oh, well, this is just kind of a little boring cookie cutter type race. And then as the sun started to go down, you started to see a shuffle. All those guys that were leading, Keselowski, Buescher, those guys fell to the back. Other people's cars came alive. If I was grading just on the third stage, I would give it an A all day. I'm gonna split the difference. I'm gonna give it a B+. I am a little biased because those last 30 laps watching Reddick tear through the field for me personally.
Listen, I was watching him too. He was a driver that was literally possessed in that third stage.
It was the most.
He made the ending of that race.
It was the most excited I've been watching a race since he was in the Xfinity series, or even since last year at Homestead when he came in fourth. I scared my girlfriend. I scared the dog. I was screaming like the whole entire time. Huh?
How's your head feel this morning?
Not great. I drank. I'm not gonna lie. I drank a lot out of anxiety. I probably drank about 8 beers in a 3-hour period, which is
welcome to NASCAR Sunday.
A lot more than I normally do. I know this week I'm definitely not drinking any beers. I'm taking the Sunday off, but I thought it was entertaining. I thought it was a solid B+ race all around, because when it comes to 1.5 mile racetracks, you're gonna get some of that boring part. I mean, look at 1.5 miles where like the same guy will get out front and he'll lead for pretty much the whole race, and that was the thing with Byron. You know, he snuck up in stage 2, won the stage, and then he stayed there for the rest of stage 3. I mean, there was a little back and forth. Some cautions played into his win. I don't think if it was for the number 7 blowing up and that caution being thrown, I don't think William Byron would be a winner. But I also don't know if Tyler Reddick would have came in second either. So like all those little things. This morning I started thinking about all the little tiny things that happened, and I think
you just have to take it and run with it, because that caution comes out and like it's a completely different race at that point in time.
But just everything like that happened in the race, like really putting it into perspective, I think it was a lot better looking back today than I thought it was even midway through the race yesterday. And of course, last night I was ecstatic. My driver came in second. I wish it was a number 1, 15, 20 more laps, and I think it would have been. But
I'll say this, guys, and I think you both agree with me on this. Thank God. I think the best decision NASCAR ever made, and I mean ever made, stage racing.
Yeah.
Oh my God, man. It just adds the extra element that you need. It's just week in and week out. It can take a stale race, and when you get down to 3 or 4 to go at the end of those stages, right in the middle of the race,
Yeah.
it just adds that a little bit of excitement to kind of get your blood pumping and ready for the next stage.
I agree.
Thank God they did that.
Especially with this package, because with the package, you just stay so tight on restarts. Like some of the restarts yesterday were wild. I mean, guys going 4, pushing it to 5 wide, going into a turn.
They were 5 wide at one point.
Yeah.
Jeff Gordon almost fell out of the booth.
So that was the 550 ton of downforce package, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Now,
See, I'm not crazy about the ton of downforce, but you could tell like it did play like the drivers were able to manipulate the air, not so much cars. So
see, but like just take what you know about the package, but pretend like you don't. Was it a good race, not knowing anything about the cars? I thought it was pretty good.
Right, but you have to look at it in a way of how could we improve the sport. I always am looking at how can we improve on the race, and it wasn't terrible as far as the product on the track and what was happening as far as lead changes go.
Yeah.
The worst thing that could ever happen is when the leader's out in front and when the guy in second catches the leader and then just can't get around him. Those races
that is depressing. You get that bubble of air between the bumpers and
at least what I noticed was the air manipulation. You could get right alongside that lead car, manipulate his air, get close enough, pull some off, and you went blown right by him. So it was nice to see the cars being able to catch the leader, but not only catch the leader, pass the leader.
Yeah. Matt, you brought up like the advent of stage racing and stuff, and people used to always bitch about the phantom cautions, and that was NASCAR basically doing that before stage racing. And it kind of drives me nuts when the old timers go like, oh, it's not racing, it's not pure racing. I want to see it go for 400 miles straight, no stops, like get rid of the playoffs, count points, like all that stuff. Like in my head, it just, do you want to go back to seeing races where there's like 7 cars on the lead lap? I don't. No.
No, thank you.
That's just
times have changed, the racing has changed, the cars have changed, the tracks have changed, the way they do things, it changes, and you have to move forward and you have to adjust and adapt to all those changes. And as we found out, they kept that same point standings for a long time, and once it became ridiculous where, like you said,
you crown a winner with 2 races
there
left.
was a champion, right? There's a champion, and the season isn't even over yet. So I love the stage racing. I think it added that element of getting rid of the stagnant parts of a long, drawn-out race.
Yeah.
And who doesn't want more restarts? Come on, get it together, you old.
I love it. I love it.
Restarts are where it's at. And if you
know who's
3 restarts, go for it.
Mm-hmm.
You know who the ones that are saying like, oh, I don't like stage racing. You know who those people are? Those are the same people that call into Sirius XM NASCAR radio and say that they stopped watching NASCAR 5 years ago. Then why the hell are you calling into Sirius XM NASCAR radio? Like,
everything that's going on in the sport if you don't watch, like, come on.
Right.
Or they're the same ones that say, oh, NASCAR died when Earnhardt died. Well, you want to know what? If your fandom died after that, you probably weren't much of a fan to begin with,
I say that all the time.
And like you could, I saw, this was on Reddit or Twitter like months and months ago, but someone posted an article from an old NASCAR magazine from like 1992. And it was talking about how NASCAR's changed and it hasn't been the same since 10 years before that. And that's when you had real racing. Like, no matter what, everyone's going to look to the past and say it was better then. In the late 90s, people were saying it was better in the early 90s. In the early 90s, people were saying it was better in the 80s and the 70s. Like,
you have guys like Chocolate Myers who were literally part of the racing experience back in the 80s and 90s who says that it's never been better than it is right now. So the guys who know what they're talking about, those are the ones you need to listen to because they're the ones who are telling you it's never been better. Never been better.
It reminds me of last week in the rain caution controversy. Like, everyone on the internet's complaining about NASCAR getting the wrong call. Guess who never complained? I didn't hear one driver complain about that call. So if the drivers aren't complaining,
the internet is ruthless, and like y'all know, are just going to go on there to bitch and complain for one reason, because they can.
Yeah.
They probably didn't watch the race. They probably saw one snippet from Fox Sports on Twitter, posted something, clickbait headline, and they just commented on it. They read the headline, commented on that, didn't look into it, didn't watch the race. But they're going to take up an hour of time on NASCAR Sirius radio and ask dumbass questions about bullshit topics. And you're like, what? Like, how are these people, like, isn't there someone there, like, going through these calls and being like, this guy's an idiot?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, screen your calls, NASCAR.
Well,
like, what are you doing?
I think a lot of those guys put them on air just for the laugh
I
of
was
it.
going to say
yeah, they probably have, like,
Hey
reoccurring
Moody, get a load of this guy I'm about to put on.
Yeah. When it comes to radio, sometimes it's fun to put the dummies online. You guys want to get into checkers and wreckers, the best and the worst of the race? Matt, you could go first. What's your checkers and wreckers?
I'll say this before we get into that, and I said this to you guys yesterday, but I just want to bring it on home. If somebody 3 weeks ago told me that we were going to open up the season with Mcdowell, Christopher Bell, and William Byron winning the first 3 races, I would have called the FBI on them. Who saw this coming? But you know what? That's why this sport is so goddamn good. With that being said,
I have a fun fact.
Love it.
I have a fun fact for you guys.
Go ahead.
This might shock you, but there are only 2 drivers that have had 3 top 10s this season. Can you guess who?
I had it in my notes.
I know. I'm the stat man. You can't stump me, dude.
Okay.
It's Harvick and it's McDowell.
Who would have saw Michael McDowell with 3 top 10s?
How about that? I have something on that too, and that's actually that
on a mile and a
leads
half.
Me into my I'm sorry, I didn't mean to. That
That's
leads
okay.
me into my checkers, though. So Michael McDowell is my checkers for the week. That's his third straight week finishing in the top 10. So I have some stats for you. Of course I do. In the first 334 races of his career, he had 8 top 10s. 7 of those were plate races, super speedway races, and 1 was Homestead a few years back. The last 26 races of his career, he's had 7 top 10s, obviously the 3 to start this year. And that leads me into a question that I have for you guys really quick here. Is Front Row Motorsports turning into what Furniture Row was a few years ago with Martin Truex Jr.? This little startup team that builds and builds and builds, wins a race here, gets a little lucky here, wins a race here, and now you're starting to see the performance come about. I mean, they have the alliance with Roush. Look at how well Roush ran yesterday with Buescher and then Newman finishing in the top 10. Don't be surprised. Don't be surprised if McDowell's here to stay, at least for a little bit.
I'm going to say,
to touch on your thing about them being the next, Furniture Row, I just think that the schedule and NASCAR's changes that they've made to the rules package and everything really benefits these smaller teams.
Yeah.
I think that's what's helping. Mick Driver, he's always been a good driver and, road courses and runs well in super speedways. And I just think this new rules package and what NASCAR is doing, I think is helping these smaller teams out. And you're just seeing what he could have been doing in the last 13 seasons, but, it just didn't go in his favor as far as what the rules package was and what his team was able to do.
So
sure, fair enough.
I'm going to say when you're looking at Front Row, you have to look at his teammate, Anthony Alfredo, fast pasta, not very fast so far in a cup car. And
he finished higher than Eric Jones did this week.
Well,
son of a bitch.
So he did get 24th. Right now he is, I just looked it up. I think it was like 27th in the points. No, Corey LaJoie's 27th in the points. 29th in the points is Anthony Alfredo. Now, last year, John Hunter Nemechek outdrove his equipment. People are looking at John Hunter Nemechek like the rookie that no one expected to do anything, and he was running pretty well. So I think the cars are decent backmarker cars. So I was reading, Bob Pockris was talking about it on Twitter today. So there is a parts freeze. So right now, no teams can develop new parts for the cars because, of course, we're going to the next gen car next year. So they pretty much cut out research and development. And then apparently there's been an adjustment where NASCAR has a new thing where they're checking the air ducts around the wheels and everything, the wheel wells are being tested more strenuously than they were last year. And I believe that does start to play a part in it. Maybe that's why we're starting to see some of the lower funded teams kind of rising to the top a little bit, because now what makes a big team fast, all that extra research and development, wind tunnel time, all that stuff, it's kind of been eliminated a little bit this season. And I think that's why I kind of like Team Penske's struggling a little bit. I mean, I know they were up front early on last night in the race, but then they fell off hard. No one finished within the top 15 for Team Penske. So, right? Is that right? Yeah, Brad finished 16th, and that was the highest placing Penske driver. So I think that's what we're seeing with some of these bigger teams. And honestly, I think McDowell, I mean, he's starting off better. You know, he's starting in a better spot every week. He's not having to cut through traffic. Right. Although yesterday he did cut through a great deal of traffic. But I think it's a combination of things. Plus, you know, he got a big payday for winning that Daytona 500. They might just be dumping it into those cars real quick to see immediate results. So that was your checkers, though. What is your record? What's the worst part of the race for you?
My record is going to be my boy Chase Elliott, man. He was reporting all race long that he couldn't drive into 3. Turn 3 was giving him a whole bunch of problems. He couldn't handle the car. He was up there for a little bit, and then he got chased down by Buescher, and he was just never really a true factor. I know he was only behind Denny Hamlin as far as odds to win yesterday. I think he was 11-2 to win the race.
Yeah.
And he was just never a factor, along with a lot of the other guys, including Denny, who were heavy favorites to win the race and just never became a factor. Like I said before, just a super odd race, but my records goes to my boy Chase. I expected more out of him.
At least he had one hell of a save, though. Did you see him sliding up near the wall there?
Again.
Amazing.
Yeah. Saves don't win races, though, man.
I think Brad could have dumped him. I think that was Brad saving his
checking
ass.
up a little bit, too.
Yeah,
and you
I agree with that. Brad ran him right over.
Brad could have crashed out Chris Buescher, too, at his slide job. So, you want to what? I like to talk shit on Brad Keselowski, but he was very forgiving in the races yesterday.
Yeah.
All right, Eric, what is your checkers and records, your best and worst of the race?
My checker, it was a toss-up, and, you know, Matt went with McDriver, and it was a toss-up. I almost went with him, but I had to go with Willie B, man. The kid, I think he deserved to win that race. I read that he showed up, and he talked about race notes and being prepared for this race. And for a kid his age and being so young to come prepared, that's huge for him. He knows he has some big shoes to fill in that 24 car.
Absolutely.
And I think he has talent behind the wheel, but talent could only take you so far. You need to do the research. You need to go back and rewatch some of these races and look at what your throttle was and really do your homework on these races. And hearing him talk about his notes that him and his team were going over and talking about that, I think that is what made the difference. And I think, you know, for me, that might propel him to have an outstanding year and maybe like you said, a William Byron breakout season. He just impressed me, you know, with his poise, and in races past, like you said, he's been up front. He's ran up front.
Yeah.
He's been in that position to win races. And, you know, just like most young drivers will, something will happen. The nerves get the best of them, and they don't end up winning those races. So it was awesome to see him get that win, and I think he's going to get more in the future if he comes prepared and focused like he is. And I don't know if that's a lot of Chad Knaus that rubbed off on William, but you know, I just think being prepared.
You know, that's a lot of
that race.
That's a lot of Jimmy Johnson that rubbed off on him. Jimmy Johnson was a huge note guy, huge research guy, and he was so heavy into crafting his expertise. And I think William Byron was taking a lot of notes and watching him these last couple years.
All right, and what was your
Eric?
record?
What's your records?
All right, so the records was tough for me, and I can't really pinpoint. There wasn't anything that stood out that I'm like, oh man, like that was bad or this was bad. My record isn't a driver. My record was just the hype. I think that's why I gave the race a C. I just think the internet, the beginning of the season, I know I was super excited for this race. I was amped up, 1.5 miles. Let's go. This is the bread and butter of our sport. Let's see what these drivers have. Everyone talks so highly about this race. It's the best track. There's going to be this, there's going to be that. And then as I start watching, I'm just like, where is all of this excitement? Where is, all of this hype that it was getting? And I think that probably led for my grade, my race grade being a C. I think I could have went with you, Whitey, where like, maybe if the hype wasn't up there and I didn't have these high expectations, such a good race that it might have gotten a B out of me. But I just think that was my record. I just was so excited and amped up for this. It was kind of a letdown. So I would just go with the hype in the internet and how like some things could be overplayed in the beginning of the season.
You know what? You make a good point, and I didn't think about that, but they really did hype this race up. And
you would believe,
And you want to know what? A thing that killed me, and I was thinking about it early on in the race, they fucking hyped up Tyler Reddick hard this week. And when he wasn't running very well, I was getting nervous. And that brings me to my checkers and wreckers. My checker, Tyler Reddick in stage 3. Once the temperature changed, the sun goes down, that track changed. I don't know what they did. I was listening to the scanner the whole time. They were having issues early on getting that car hooked up, and especially on restarts. And I think that's why he didn't get the win. He had a rough restart in that last restart, where the splitter was just dragging a little bit. They could not get the ride height right for restarts. My record, the worst part of the race for me, I really couldn't think of much to complain about the race. So I'm just going to go back to, let's start them at noon. Although if we started at noon, we wouldn't have the finish we had under the lights and with the track changing. So I don't know. I'm conflicted. I'm going to say no record.
Was tough for me. Yeah, the record was tough for me this week too. And when I broke it down, and I had a couple written down here just in case, like I had McDriver down in case someone else took it. And he did impress me too. So I would have to agree with Matt on his checkers with McDriver. But the record, like you said, Whitey, it was tough for me to really pick out anything. Like I could have obviously went with my driver cutting a tire down or something like that. Yeah, that sucks. But like, I love the sport. Like you said, like sometimes I'm not biased. Sometimes I watch. If my driver blows a tire on lap 3, I'm still going to watch. Like I said, I'll follow Christopher Bell. If my main driver goes out, I have other people that I'll root for. But it was tough to find that record that just stood out.
Yeah. I agree. I went with Chase just because we had to find something to bicker about with the records. But it was a good race. If you guys are afraid of the overhype of this race, you better not watch Bristol Dirt because the hype on that race is through the frickin' roof.
You want to know what though?
So they better go out there and perform.
So here's the thing. I don't think it's really being hyped as it's going to be a great race. I think it's just being hyped that it's going to be a spectacle. Like, it's going to be one to watch. We don't know if it's going to be good. We don't know if it's going to be shitty. We don't know what's going to happen. It will be something to watch though.
Yeah. Speaking of checkers and wreckers, they better have a couple more wreckers at that racetrack for that weekend. Because I think there's going to be a lot of cars that get beat and banged up and pulled out of their fire.
We're going to see a red flag at least, I think.
Oh, no doubt. But they've been testing on it, though, I think. I think they have they're doing groups where they're going to test on it. Like, so that people don't go in there. Like, that's one of the tracks that is going to have a practice and like a qualifying and like they're going to do heats or something like that. I think they're going to try to do for it.
I'm excited about that. They're going to do heats like your local short track would have. I think they're doing 3 heats and then the A main. I think that's going to be fun to watch.
Before and it didn't work.
No?
Yeah, they attempted that once before and it didn't work just because they didn't want to wreck their car for the main. So it was like, what's the difference if I start 7th or 17th? I'm not going to smash my car in this heat to gain 5 spots,
But like,
we'll see. It's different. You know,
Yeah.
they might.
It's gonna be
the
different.
talent's
We'll
better.
have plenty of time to talk about that in the next couple weeks.
Plus, I'm just thinking, look at the All-Star race this past year. You know, you had those guys trying to race their way in, and they would beat in Banks. So, like, I don't know. We'll see what happens. I'm excited for the spectacle. I'm not excited for great racing or anything. We'll see. Before we wrap up the Dixie Vodka 400, was there anything else in the race you guys want to talk about before we move on?
I have one thing in my notes here. I don't know if it's really anything to do with this race exactly, but I think it had to have been last year because Harvick was winning. Remember in the beginning of the season, everyone's like, they were so hot on these young drivers. Oh, the sport is changing over. Old drivers are out, young drivers are in. And, you know, then Harvick came out and he's like, when he wins his race, he's like, where are these young guys at? I'm still here. And he kind of like, you know, threw a punch back at the young guys. And then, you know, you saw him and Denny just go out and dominate and basically rub those young guys' faces right in the dirt and say, hey, not so soon. I think some of these veteran drivers are concerned. I think these first three races, I think some of these teams, they're on their heels a little bit, and they have to get their shit together because, and I'm asking you guys this too. Do you think this is the year that the young guys do take over and these, you know, the top teams and these veteran drivers like the Bushes, the Hamlins, the Harvicks, you know, Keselowski's who really, you know, yesterday weren't running that well. Do the young guys, I know Chase did end up winning, but as far as the domination throughout the season, I still think it went to the veterans. So what is your guys' thoughts on, you know, the veterans and would you be concerned if you're a veteran driver about these young guys? Is it their turn yet?
I wouldn't be concerned yet.
Right.
I see the possibility in what you're talking about? Absolutely. Have I been thinking about it myself? Absolutely. Yeah. Especially now, the last 2 weeks, we have William Byron and Christopher Bell win, both in their mid and early 20s. But I just pulled up the standings right now. Denny Hamlin's still in first place by 10 points with 139. Now we're still only 3 races in. Kevin Harvick's in second. Joey Logano is in third. Now, they might not be showing the finishes that we would expect out of them right now, but they're still gobbling up stage points. They're still getting decent finishes for the most part. And, I mean, Kurt Busch is in sixth. He's one of the oldest drivers in the field right now. Michael McDowell is in fourth, which we'll see how long that'll last. I mean, Kyle Larson.
I'm not worried about it. If I'm those veteran drivers, I'm not worried. Not yet. Not yet. You get me into the midsummer and we're seeing a lot of these new guys taking up those wins, then we can have a conversation. But I just think, you know, with the road course and the super speedway to start out the year, not yet. I mean, it's way too early for me to really start getting nervous for those old guys.
Yeah.
But with that being said, I mean, it's going to have to happen eventually where there's a lot of new guys, a lot more new guys. And when I say new, I mean younger guys in the sport than there are old guys now. So it's going to happen eventually.
So I was listening to Moody on the way home from work today. And the reason that I just brought that up was because he had mentioned something. And I'm like, wow, that was kind of shocking. Out of the 8 races that the NASCAR has run over all their series, 8 races.
Yeah.
Michael McDowell is the only one to win that was over the age of 26 years old.
How about that?
Okay.
So that's what made me bring that up. And knowing that Harvick last year was, you know, they kind of got into a little back and forth with the young versus the old. And there's a little chirping back and forth. And it just made me think like, damn, like only one person, and it was, you know, McDowell to win that was over the age of 26, which is, you know, 26, that's pretty young. And, you know, a lot of those drivers, what'd you say? Like there's a couple in their 40s, Harvick, most of them are in their late 30s, but it's going to be fun to watch to see if these William Byrons and, you know, Christopher Bells could go out and maybe steal a couple more.
So, just for fun, who do you think besides who we've already talked about, like William Byron, who do you think might have a breakout year this year? Do you think Austin Dillon will keep the momentum he had in the playoffs last year? Do you think that team's finally hitting some gears? Do you think it's going to be someone on a lower funded team? You know, who are those younger guys? Of course, I mean, Chase Elliott's a young guy, but I feel like he's already a veteran, you know? Christopher Bell,
Yeah,
I think he can win again.
You brought up Austin Dillon, man. I know back when Matt had to, look for a new driver when Dale Jr. was leaving the sport, and do you go to the 3? Do you go back? And we had some conversations about going with Austin Dillon, and that was when they were returning the 3, and what do you do? And even back then, I think I had high hopes for Austin Dillon, and started slow, but a lot of people that are in his spotlight and that young with the spotlight tend to start off slow and struggle with the they just have so much high expectations on them and the pressure put on them.
There's a lot of pressure on the shoulders,
Yeah, I think he's always had the talent, and he's had his wins sprinkled here and there, but just overall consistency, I think he's coming around. Now, my question to you is that his equipment? Is that Chevy? Is that, RCR? Or is it just him maturing?
I think it's probably a combination of everything, a little bit of Group A, a little bit of Group B. I feel like him getting a little bit older and maturing, he's got a whole lot more starts under his belt. And even like, as you were talking, it made me think about just William Byron in general. Last year, I remember texting you guys and saying, who do you think wins first, William Byron or Tyler Reddick? Because William Byron was not doing very well last year. And I feel like for some younger guys, it's that pressure, especially when you're in a legendary number like the 24 or the 3. It adds something because you do have legacy fans that are coming with you.
I think it's kind of like, the culture, as not just in NASCAR, but in life in general, the culture that we live in right now is instant satisfaction, instant gratification. And if you're not getting it immediately, you were so quick to write these guys off. And I just think, because look at the talent on the top end. You've still got your Harvicks, your Bushes, your Hamlins. Mm-hmm. They're going to win a lot of races. They're going to take up a lot of those wins.
Yeah, I don't think they're done winning at all.
No, not at all. But we've also got to give these kids time to develop and get into it. I mean, look at Chase is finally starting to get into his own. That took a little bit of time. His first 3 or 4 years in the Cup Series, it wasn't all glitz and glamour. So instead of this whole, I want to see them win now. I think that we need to cut them a break, give them some time, and see what they can develop into. And I think we're starting to see it with some of these guys that are coming into their 5th, 6th years, like your Larsons, hopefully, Blaney. I think you asked who's going to have a breakout season. My answer, I think it's going to be Blaney, but we'll see.
I thought Blaney was going to have a breakout year last year. He showed a lot of promise early on, and you want to know what? I feel like the break due to COVID really put the brakes on that team and really slowed their momentum.
To go back to the race a little bit, I will have to say I was impressed with Chris Buescher. Like, to go out there and to wheel that car to the lead and to keep it out in front. Like, there's a lot of times you go out, lead maybe 8, 10 laps, and then you'll fall off. The other guys will come back, their tires come in, and you kind of hang around in the top 10. But man, did he really hold that, that car in first place and wheel that thing around. And I think he's another one that he has talent and he needs some, more seat time. And the more seat time he gets behind that car, and to your point, if Roush gets their shit together, that might be a kid to look forward to in the future, as far as maybe having a breakout year this year with what he's shown. And if he could keep this up at 1.5 miles, I'd be interested to see what he could do.
I was going to say, I wasn't shocked by his performance at all as a driver. I was shocked by the performance of the car itself. Because of the way Roush has been the last couple of years, and not
even a couple, dude. They've been
the last decade.
Yeah, and you want to know what?
Kent has failed because they were shit.
I took notice to Buscher's talent last season. I played him a lot in daily fantasy as like a budget pick towards the end because he would stay in a decent position and usually finish within the top 20. You know, I thought it was funny on Tyler Reddick's radio. His spotter radioed in and goes something along the lines of, "What the hell's going on with the 17 and the 6? Are they running Penske cars this week?" And I mean, that just goes to show you it's not the drivers. I mean, Newman's not a terrible driver. They're just
Newman ran well.
He was mixing it up in the top 10 for a lot of stage 1 too. It's just those Roush Fenway cars. And a while ago, I was listening to some Mark Martin podcasts, and of course, he was with Roush for years, but apparently, like, they did not want to spend money at all. Like, it's just one of those things, and it finally caught up to them.
Carl Edwards and Matt Kenseth, they're like, "I'm out of here.
Yeah.
We can't do anything." So both of them went to JGR. The minute they went to JGR, they started winning like you wouldn't believe.
Yep.
And that was the demise of Roush Fenway. And, you know, we bust Ricky a lot, and you know, he's the first one to wreck. And, you know, he wasn't, you know, there's no fluke when you're a back-to-back nationwide champion.
No,
you know,
exactly.
Like,
the guy's talented.
He just went to a shitty, you know, he went to a shitty organization for his first ride. And, you know, sometimes that's what it is. It's like a quarterback in college that gets drafted number 1 overall to the Jacksonville Jaguars. You're most likely your career is going to suck.
And you're going to try to overperform in your equipment. You're going to push it a little too hard, and you're going to wreck out cars, you know? Ricky Stenhouse Jr. did pretty damn good yesterday, you know? I forget what the situation was, but he got a little loose. He almost wrecked it, and then he backed off. He's like, "Okay, I gotta calm my jets a little bit." And I feel like even just that is a little bit of Ricky Stenhouse kind of maturing too. So who knows? Maybe he'll get a better ride in the future, and he might be one of those younger guys that we'll be talking about soon. So let's wrap up the Dixie Vodka 400 talk. I want to get into a new segment. It's called Pick a Lane. I got 3 questions for you guys, and you could debate back and forth. Of course, you know, like we said earlier, this race was pretty overhyped. Consider the best mile-and-a-half track. Should Homestead be on the schedule for more than once a year?
No, it shouldn't. And I'll tell you why it shouldn't, is because it should be on the schedule once a year. And you know when it should be on the schedule once a year? At the very end of the season. I thought it was a perfect place to have the championship race. Kudos to NASCAR for trying and switching it up. I think it was the wrong decision taking it to Phoenix, but I have my own thoughts on Phoenix Raceway that we can get into as we lead into that race in a couple weeks. No, I don't. I think it should be once, and it should be the championship race. It was a great place to wrap up the season. That's what I think.
I could see why they put Homestead in the beginning. I could see why they did that. To add another one, I agree with Matt. Probably not. It usually does produce good racing, and I think putting it in the beginning, they wanted to see if they were going to be able to. What I thought from last week. Okay, you put this racetrack first. We're going to see who's going to be the teams and the drivers leading forward. But after the race yesterday, I don't think we got that answer. So I would agree with Matt. I say leave it once. If you keep, just like with more short tracks is great, but not the same track.
Yeah.
Sometimes you could take the hype or whatever you want to call it away from it when you have too many. Just like, you know, the trucks going to Eldora. You know, don't do more on the dirt. Eldora is so popular because it's a one-time thing.
Yeah.
It's a great race. You look forward to it. So that's how I feel about Homestead. Same thing with Matt. End of the season, you know you're going to get a good race. That's where it belongs.
All right, choose coming back out. Pick a lane. I want to know, lap traffic became an issue during the Xfinity race. Should lap traffic get out of the way, or should they keep fighting to stay from going another lap down?
Go ahead, Eric.
I think if your car is up to speed and on the racetrack, you have every right to that racetrack. I think you're out there, you're putting the money, you're putting the effort, you're putting the time.
Mm-hmm.
That team back home, everyone wants to just say, oh, the driver, this and that. They don't realize about what all goes into build that race car and to bring that car to the racetrack. So they're fighting for everything that they have. Yes, there are a few in the back that get in the way, but I think if you're up to speed and you're running well, most of the lap cars do get out of the way. But, there are times when they do cause some cautions that will absolutely destroy a driver's day. But as far as lap traffic goes, it's frustrating, yes, but that's racing, man.
This is supposed to be a debate segment, and I'm so happy you went that way, Eric, because I feel so adamant about going the other way on it. You made some good points, but politely screw yourself, because those lap cars need to get out of the way. They need to get out of the way, especially when we're talking about like the last. I get it. You have to fight for your position. Of course you do. You have sponsors that are paying you to do so. But with that being said, when it's coming down to the nitty gritty, the last lap or two of a stage, or especially at the end of a race, you have to get out of the way when these leaders are coming up on you. And that's part of the spotter's job, to let them know, hey, listen, you've got the lead cars coming up on you. This is the lane that they've been riding. How about you get out of the way, let them go, and continue on with your day. They're also professional race car drivers where they don't have to slow. We're not asking them to slow down and stop fighting for the position that they're fighting for. Just asking you to pick the other lane that these guys aren't running. Let them go by. Don't become the headline, and keep it moving.
I think, I agree too, to an extent. I think for the majority of the time, though, you go over lap by lap, I think they get out of the way most of the time. I don't think it's every once in a while you have incidents where, damn, that lap car got in the way. Right. I know, for a fact, Kenseth has run into the back of a lot of them, like, the Timmy Hills and the people that run in the back. Like, it's like, damn it, how many times he yelled fucking Timmy Hill? Yeah. Like, just because he ran into the back of them, or Matt, the guy was running slow. He wants to go down a pit lane, doesn't have his hand out the window, signaling that he's going down. So to your point, I can't agree with you that, they are professional race car drivers, and they should know that the leader's coming. They should know what to do. It is on the spotter, but I do believe, though, that, like, it also depends how many laps down. If you're fighting to get on the lead lap, I don't give a fuck if you're, fighting to get in the 23rd position. If you could be in 23rd on the lead lap, or this is the one lap down, I'm fighting for that spot. I don't give a shit who the hell is around me. You're racing.
I'm the judge. I'm banging my gavel. I think the discussion is done there. I agree with Eric 100%. My prime example is Ryan Newman. He is the hardest man to pass. If you want to put him a lap down, you have to fucking work for it. Now I will say if you're more than a lap down, yeah, be polite, get out of the way. Try to avoid them as much as possible.
Right around 5 laps down, bear bond all over your car, get out of the way.
But if you're trying to stay on the lead lap and not let the leader pass you, or you're a lap down, you don't want to go a second lap down because you might get the lucky dog. I say that's racing, bud. That's what I want to see. I want to see someone get in the way.
Right. I'm talking about these guys who are 4, 5, 6.
The judge has spoken. The gavel has been hit.
All right. I want to move on to another new segment that is new in town. We have 3 new teams in the NASCAR Cup Series this year, and I just want to highlight them, see if you guys have any thoughts. Daniel Suarez finished 15th, earning his best finish since Phoenix in 2019. 2019, of course, that was the year that he left Stewart-Haas Racing. I'm seeing some interest in this team. It's a Pitbull co-owned team. So far, early on in the season, he said he was in the best equipment he's had. And, he's had the best finish he's had since 2019. What do you guys think about that? Do you think Daniel Suarez might be a bigger story as we go on throughout the year?
Let me take this one here, Matt.
Okay.
Just because he was a teammate of mine when I was, a fan of Kenseth and Eric Jones and their JGR. And when he took over the 19, when Carl Edwards left, there was speculation around who he was, what he was capable of doing. And in Mexico, he is beloved. He is a superstar. So he has won a lot of, like, the races that go on in Mexico. think they have a K&N Mexico. They might have a series down there or something.
Yeah.
And he's a great driver when it comes to that. I thought he ran well when he was in the 19th car with Joe Gibbs. He was fast. He was competitive. And I just think he just got a bad just run, like as far as deals and silly season goes.
Yeah.
I just think he just got shafted as far as opportunity goes.
And
as far as Wheelman, I think he's a great driver. So I hope he does well. And he did run well in that car. And shout out to Pitbull getting into the sport of NASCAR.
Oh, yeah. Love to see some diversity in the sport.
And he brings culture, right?
Yeah.
And his fan base is infiltrating our sport in a good way, bringing fans and TV ratings, and I do hope he does well.
Plus, if I'm not mistaken, he is an Xfinity Series champion, right?
Yes.
And he replaced was it Carl Edwards when he retired suddenly? Yeah. So I feel like Daniel Suarez was just kind of thrusted into the Cup Series a little unexpectedly.
They kind of threw him in. Yeah. They needed someone quick to fill in. They grabbed him, and I thought he did well for going to Joe Gibbs and going in there, and he performed. He performed well.
Yeah, I don't have much on it. Eric, I thought you spoke upon that pretty eloquently. Might have been the first eloquent thing you've ever said, actually. No, I think just like we talked about in past episodes about Haley Deegan and about Bubba Wallace, if those guys are good and they're successful in the sport, it's nothing but good. Bring in the diversity. Like Eric said, they're infiltrating our sport in a good way. I want to see Suarez do good because it's only good for the sport of NASCAR as a whole. Like Eric said, he's beloved in Mexico. Bring those eyes up here. Let them watch it and spread the word that NASCAR is a great inclusive sport.
And one more thing on Suarez, I'll tell you what, he's feisty. He's not afraid to speak his mind either. When he feels like he's wronged or being bullied out there or someone treated him like shit, he came out and he confronted a lot of people on that. So,
dude, he fought McDowell last year during practice.
Yeah, so
threw him right to the ground.
He has passion, and I love that out of somebody. If you that's why Reddick. The dude was pissed he couldn't give people free chicken tenders, bro.
Seriously.
That's the type of guy you want behind the wheel of a race car. He's for the fans, I love drivers that talk about the fans and are really interactive with the fans in that way. So I'm seeing good things in his future.
So Danny was the leader when it comes to the new teams. In 22nd, it was Bubba Wallace, 2311 Racing. Still brand new team, kind of feeling things out. I'm not gonna go too far into it. I think it's too early to tell. And yesterday was quite a weird race. Corey LaJoie, 36th. I felt bad for him. He seemed to be running pretty well until his engine expired. And of course, our friend Stevie Letarte topped the pit box for him because of a COVID outbreak on the team. Yeah. I was kind of hoping to see something happen good for LaJoie just because I'm such a Steve Letarte fan. And but yeah, 36.
Yeah, disappointing for Steve.
Yeah, and he even said coming into the race, just to tie a bow on that, I know I saw an interview that he did with Bobby Pockrass, just saying, I'm not interested. I don't care what kind of shocks we have. I don't care about any of that. I'm here to manage the race, make sure nothing bad happens. Unfortunately, he did have some bad luck. I think another one, Corey LaJoie, who's a legacy name in this sport, it's only good to have these guys succeed because you got a lot of fans watching them.
I like Corey LaJoie a lot too. He just seems like a genuinely nice guy. I mean, during the week, he's working at his family's seat fabrication shop. I just, I like that kind of story. Him, Ross Chastain with the melons and everything. And I feel like it's almost like you go back to the days of Dale Earnhardt, where you could kind of see he's a blue collar guy like me too. You kind of identify with him a little bit. And of course, my favorite segment, who came in last this week? It was one Timmy Hill. I feel bad. I like Timmy Hill. I think he's a nice guy. We saw a lot of him during the iRacing series last year during the COVID shutdown. Unfortunately, he came in last.
Yeah, you touched on the iRacing. He should probably stick to that because I've got some stats for you.
Okay.
And you're right, Timmy. Before I rip this guy, I do want to say Timmy Hill seems to be a good guy from everything that I've seen from other drivers and everything. That being said, Timmy, maybe stick to the rig in your living room because the one on the track isn't doing too good for you. Timmy has raced, so he's not new at this either. He's raced 10 years in the Cup Series.
Yeah, he's been around a long time.
He's raced 130 races. Actually, 2020 last year was the only year that he ran a full schedule. In those 130 races, he doesn't have a top 5 or a top 10, like not even a fluky one on a super speedway or anything like that.
Does he even have a top 20?
Yes. So. Yes. I didn't look that up because I mean, no top 5s, no top 10s sucks enough. I'm gonna go out there and say he has to have at least one top 20 out there. He's
like a super speedway or something, right?
Yeah.
He's only led one lap, and this is the one that blew me away because we ripped Quinn Houff last week rather. What did I say? Quinn Houff's average finishing position was 32nd, I believe.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Timmy Hill's 34.8.
Oh yeah, I could believe that. I could believe that.
He's only completed 64% of his Cup races too. He's only completed 83 out of 130. He was running at the finish. So, Timmy Hill, I'm sorry, buddy. You were the last one in the to finish the race. So we had to highlight you.
I think he got a truck ride for this upcoming truck race. I think he's driving the 53. I think it's the 53 truck. I'm pretty sure someone's giving him a try in the truck series.
You know what though? God love them because we need these back marker teams. You know why? Anyone?
So they could get in the way of the leaders and we'll have something to complain about.
Yeah.
That's that lap traffic. Without Timmy Hill, where's the lap traffic?
we wouldn't have a pick a lane segment. All right, let's get into the preview for next week. Next week, we're going to be in a lovely, sunny Las Vegas for the Pennzoil 400 presented by Jiffy Lube. We have another 3:30 start. No shocker there. Of course, it's in the desert, and really it'll be a 12:30 start local time. Sold out with limited capacity. That's a good sign for things moving forward with the sport and getting fans back in the stands. In fact, just announced today, Pocono, thanks to the governor lifting some restrictions, we'll also have up to 20% fans in the stands. Hopefully that number keeps rising as cases go down and we get some people vaccinated. Unofficial lineup. I thank you, Bob Pockris, for doing the math on this one. I have the top 15 here. It looks like Harvick and Byron are going to start on the front row. Second row is going to be Larson and Truex. McDowell and Hamlin behind them. Kurt Busch and Elliott. Bowman, Keselowski, Redditt and Dillon. Newman, Kyle Busch, and Logano making up the top 15. Do you guys want to do our picks for the weekend? And Matt, do you want to recap our picks for this last weekend and what we got wrong? I think my Tyler Reddick pick lets me pick first since he came in second.
Yeah, I was going to say Redditt or Whitey, you picked Reddick, so you're going first, buddy. I picked Kyle Busch, who was like non-existent. And Eric, honestly, I forget who you picked, but it wasn't one of Byron. Okay, so I'm last. Yeah. So I'm last. Okay, let's do this.
All right, I had
some stats first.
Okay, I'll take some stats. There's one person in
stats
my heart.
Stats ain't gonna change my mind, buddy. Yeah. Stats ain't changing my mind. If you take my driver, Whitey, I'm coming right over to your house, breaking into your fucking room, strangling you.
My initial pick, and this is not who I'm going with. This is who in my heart I want to win, is Matt DiBenedetto. So the last two times in Las Vegas, he came in second both times. In my head, he runs great at Las Vegas. Unfortunately, his luck so far this year is not good. He's starting in the back. I am not going with him. In fact, I'm going to stick. I'm going to stick with the hometown boy, the older Busch brother. I'm going with Kurt Busch, the
you
winner
son
of the
bitch.
fall
I'm
race.
I'm leaving right now. You son of a bitch. I'm coming over right now.
He starts the race in lucky number 7 spot, and I don't think he's going to leave the top 10 all day. I think he pulls off his win. I think he's going to be the first veteran besides Michael McDowell we see win a race today or this year, and I think he's going to lock himself into the playoffs early, unlike last year where he had to point his way in. So that's my pick. I want Matt DiBenedetto to win. I'm going with Kurt Busch.
All right.
Sorry,
well,
Eric.
Since I'm second, because Kyle Larson obviously fucked me.
Can we stop calling it the Larson line? Can we stop calling it the Larson line and call it the Reddick Railway, because that car was on rails?
I mean, see, I don't know if Reddick he outperformed or if Larson let me down. I can't tell, but Kurt, honestly, Whitey,
Truex passed Larson on the white flag too. You didn't see it on TV because they cut away from it, but yeah. I think he let you down,
I can't believe you're going Kurt Busch. I just watched the way Kurt Busch has been racing this year, and he's been racing phenomenal. There's something happened with Kurt Busch. I don't know what it was. He's racing like he's 22 years old again.
Yeah.
He's got this energy, this passion, this aggressiveness about him, and this determination. When I saw him split Brad Keselowski and I forget who was to his inside, he split those two drivers and went right in the middle of them and said, I'm faster than both you guys. Get out of my way. And he basically bumped them and said, let me through. I'm like, he's driving like just on a whole nother level this year.
He really is. And like he's coming back from mistakes you wouldn't believe. Like in the road race, he came back from a big mistake. Last night he came back from he had to go into pit road. He had a vibration in his wheel. Like Kurt Busch has been on fire. If it wasn't for those little mistakes, I think he could have had 2 wins in the books already.
If you didn't take Kurt, I told myself I was going to take Kyle. Hometown, out in Vegas. Now, only reason I'm not taking Kyle is because he doesn't have much luck at his hometown.
Yeah.
So,
you just threw an audible at me. I had Kyle Busch written down for you. Who are you taking?
So I'm taking, spitefully, Matt DiBenedetto. You fucking cock.
Okay, well, good luck with that.
DiBenedetto leads every race. I hope he leads every lap and dominates. And Kurt Busch smashed the wall 2 laps in. You fuck.
Well, DiBenedetto's starting at like 36.
So we know Dovan's going to be picking last next week.
Yeah. You want to know what, though? When I was looking up the stats, I was playing Statman like Matt, and I couldn't believe it. I forgot Matt DiBenedetto came in second in both those races.
Yeah, I forgot about that. I'll make this short and sweet for you. And then what I would like to do, if you guys don't mind, is give a little bit of stats. I've had a couple people reach out to me the first couple weeks of the season asking, hey, who should I put some money down? Who should I put some money down?
Yeah.
And what I'm gonna start doing is just referring them to this segment so they can get the stats and they can make their own educated pick for themselves.
Sure.
My pick is going to be Logano, so I'll get that out of the way right now.
Okay.
Yeah, I know. I hate the guy, but
here, if you look at my
here.
notes, I don't know if you can see this. I had Logano crossed out. I was going to pick him too, but then I looked at his history. You think he does a lot better. I don't. What are the stats though? Give me the stats.
Well, I mean, okay. So what I like to do with these races is I like to look at like, what have you done for me lately? Like, I don't care about the last 10 races. I look at like the last like 2 or 3 seasons.
Yeah.
Because a lot of things change, over time.
Right.
So I looked at the last 6 races, which is the last 3 years. The best average finishes for Las Vegas is Keselowski, 5.3. Logano is average finish is 6th, MTJ 6.7, Larson 6.8. And that's only with 5 starts, because remember he raced once in Vegas last year and then he was suspended. Kyle Busch 8.7 and then Blaney 9.2. Laps led over the last 6 races in Vegas. Harvick led 455 laps, and then Logano with 317. And the fact to me, like when I look at that and I see that Harvick has led 455 laps, but he doesn't have an average finish in the top 10. it means he's running well. He's just not finishing. So I look to see if Harvick can finish here this week. And then the wins, Logano's the only one in the past 6 races who has double-digit wins at 2. And then Keselowski, MTJ, Harvick, Kurt Busch all have 1 apiece. So take that what you will, and I'm going with Logano.
All right, mark him down. We'll see how it all unfolds. That leads me to a couple of questions I had too. Just for next week, do you think Penske is going to perform during the West Coast swing? Usually Team Penske is pretty strong at Vegas and Phoenix. You just rattled off the stats there. Do you think they'll get back to form? Logano and Keselowski both in the top 15 to start the race. Obviously, you think Logano's going to win.
I hope they do. I think, like Matt said in the stats, Penske runs well there, and I just think with this year, the way it's panning out, it's even tough to go back 3 seasons, Matt. Like you're saying, like shit always changes. And as far as NASCAR and rules packages and who is consistent, you want to go with what are they doing now? And I could agree with that. And I just think the beginning of this season makes it even tougher to like dial in who is going to run well and who isn't going to run well. So the people that normally run well here, or the people that normally ran well at Homestead, it was kind of, there were people in the front that shouldn't have been there, and vice versa. So we'll see after Vegas if the normal people that are finishing, like you said, in those top 10s and top 5s year in and year out. Let's see if that holds true for this race. If I see another wild mix-up in the top 10 again this coming week, and if it stays as wild, man, I don't know. That makes this season just all that much
really
more
hard
exciting
to predict.
To me. And it's really hard to predict. So
that's what I'm thinking.
Jab at Whitey here, though. Speaking of prop bets and fantasy, and I just want to say that there was one of us won our fantasy league this week. So.
That is true. That is true.
Eric, you went from the basement to winning. How about that, man?
Bottom from yes, because I actually set my lineup and I know how to play the game now.
Here's the thing. We are still in the grand scheme of the season, pretty far down in the hole. I'm in 12th right now in the standings of our fantasy league. You are in 11th, and you are winning by 11 points. So don't get too cocky. I don't know who JW.
Hey, that's a win. A win is a win.
I don't know who JW Pierce is in our fantasy league, Matt, but he is kicking everyone's ass.
Yeah, he is. He's my buddy's brother. He's one of the guys that I go to the races with. Great dude. But I'm hoping that he's just using up all of his weapons early and then he fades out.
That's what I'm hoping for too. But at the same time, I keep wondering, when should I start putting Hamlin and Harvick and these guys into my fantasy lineup? Because so far they're not panning out. Do you think the West Coast swing is where we see it, or do you think it's going to take a little bit longer for things to heat up?
Hell yeah.
I mean, well, this goes back to my point before, Whitey, I guess, when I brought up the whole Harvick and Hamlin, young versus old, who's going to be there? Is this the year that we see a lot of these young drivers making the leap forward? Or as like Matt said, as the summer rolls in, do the veterans find the groove? They figure out the package, their teams figure everything out, and it rolls smooth. Or it could go what Whitey said. They're shutting down a lot of R&D. The engineering departments aren't doing a lot because we're going to the next-gen car. So does that play a real big factor in these teams being closer together as far as money spent engineering and wind tunnel? And, it's the gray area that I always look at, and what teams push that gray area. And I think, you mentioned before, Whitey, how Blaney was saying that his crew chief, they're cracking down on a lot of these aero inspections, and what is giving these teams aero advantage and more downforce, and they're cracking down on that. Like you saw Harvick with his rear window, pre-race laser, it's fine. At speed, it goes and it folds in and causes more downforce. So the
you remember area, that was crazy.
That was
absolutely
wild.
Insane.
That was crazy. I never saw anything like that.
That's just genius pushing the rules, you know?
Yeah.
Right. Like they say, it's not, to me, people are like, oh, they're cheating. And technically, did they cheat? Yes. But
They bent some rules that really weren't, you know.
Like, you're not going to win unless you're trying to do something different. You have to push that envelope. So I'm not afraid, or I'm not mad when my team fails an inspection, because they're trying to do something different and push that envelope just a little bit farther. Hey, some teams get away with it, and some teams don't. So, you know, you got to take it what it is. If it's your driver, good for you. If not, well, move on to next week.
And you never know. Sometimes that little thing that they fail inspection for is, just the red herring hiding a bigger thing that they didn't catch that time, you know?
That's right.
Wow. Just like Reddick, can't even pass inspection.
Yeah. No, well, that's not his fault. That was ride height thing. That was the Xfinity Series race. He was running part-time. I'm not worried about that. I'm worried what he's doing on Sundays in RCR equipment. We will continue.
Our rivalry goes back.
We will continue.
Our rivalry goes back to Xfinity. Last year?
How many times has Gibbs Racing failed inspections? Okay,
MTJ and Denny are going to the back of the pack.
Who started from the back
race.
of the pack this weekend? Denny Hamlin, unapproved adjustments. I'm just saying, how many times has a spoiler been confiscated? All I know is Fox keeps saying it. It's going to be the best, craziest season yet. And we'll see things heat up in the desert next week. Las Vegas, Pennzoil 400, presented by Jiffy Lube, 3:30 Eastern. I'm Michael D. White. For Matt, the Statman Reilly, Daytona Ron, this is the Bump and Run podcast. And we'll talk to you next week. Have a good night, gentlemen.